stuff that is going to be hard and expensive to change later.
Yeah.
So if you really want a nice dark window, for instance, or a window with a SDL bar, some nice profile to it, I consider that a really good investment on the front end. You'll never change those. Welcome back to Design, Build, Sell. We're your hosts, RB Gallup,
Sarah Bennett,
And Alicia Davi. Today, we wanted to talk about save versus splurge. I feel like whether you're building a home, looking to buy a home, or remodeling, I mean, I get asked this all the time. Clients ask you all the time.
I was going to say, I think that all three of us, this is probably a very recurring question and topic that we talk about with our clients.
Yes. And I think it's also a preference of what people put into value. So I'm just curious to see what we all think we should save and splurge on.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the fun stuff. Let's talk about splurging. So, okay, I feel like we should each go around the room and each of us say, what if you had gun to your head, if you had to tell your client, this is what I would suggest you splurge on, what would that thing be and why?
I always tell people to put their money into their kitchen. One, I know from resale and stuff, it holds the value, but also it's usually your most used space in your home. It's where you use it multiple times a day. Your family gathers. Obviously, the items and appliances you're putting in there are typically one of your higher price point values. So I always say go big on the kitchen.
Yeah. For me, I tell people, if someone asks me their opinion, I encourage people to splurge on some light fixtures, not necessarily all of them, and with the thought that these are homes that people are going to be staying in for a while, not something that you're going to just live in for a short time. But I think that light fixtures make a big impact, and you're not going to necessarily get your money back on a light fixture. But I just think that in terms of the interest and when you do go to sell the home, and just like statement pieces that people can say, like, I love like when people come like, I love all of your light fixtures. I'm like, oh, thank you. Me too. So that's mine.
It's a flair piece is what we like to call it.
Ooh.
Yeah, pieces of flair.
Yeah, that's a personality. I have to completely disagree with you on that answer, but let's see what RV says.
I was going to disagree with her. All right. Well, anyway, what I would splurge on is the exterior. So
That's a good one.
what does that involve? Roofing, windows, brick, stone, stuff that is going to be hard and expensive to change later.
Yeah.
So if you really want a nice dark window, for instance, or a window with a SDL bar, some nice profile to it, I consider that a really good investment on the front end. You'll never change those.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah.
I should have thought of that one.
Yeah.
That's why
You
I do
win.
this for a living. So.
Yeah.
You win. Apparently, I lose. But again, I do not mean that you should splurge on every light fixture. But I mean, I do think, especially like when I have like the husband and the wife, and the wife's like, what do you think? I'm like, oh, definitely get that light fixture. And I always, when people show me too, and they don't tell me how much either cost, I always draw towards the more expensive one. Like I just,
Expensive taste? You don't say.
Well, Alicia knows. Really, Josh Bennett is the one with the expensive taste. But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll let him slide on that.
So
What other areas? I mean, obviously, we just hit those.
yeah, what other areas would you splurge? So we talked about exterior. Again, things that are hard to change later. So
Go ahead.
yeah. So if you were going to, where's a place to splurge?
Oh, I have an idea.
Okay. You go
Like
ahead.
when you're going through your plan design for building a house, like clients are like, oh, should I do 10-foot ceilings? Should I
Yeah.
do a vaulted ceiling?
Yeah.
Should I bring my stone all the way up? Like things that are going to elevate your house and, in my opinion, make them have more appeal, maybe more value. Like let's put money into the house that way. So
Right.
rule of thumb, like RB said, stuff that's hard to change. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to go back through and knock your ceiling out.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. And I think that's a point that people don't understand, that the ceiling height does change the price of a house, right? Like the cost
sure.
to build.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this is what my dad always told me, but if you have a 9-foot stud and you have a 10-foot stud, he goes, well, roughly that's going to be about 10% more on that, whatever's involved there, So that was a kind of a good way to think about it. But it's not as expensive to do on the front end as you think, because while you say, 10%, but it's 10% of that. So it's drywall, framing, siding, and that's about it. Not much.
So not necessarily a splurge, but it's like something to consider of like, where am I putting my money?
Yeah, it's money for value,
Yes.
or it's like how to get the most impact. And I think having a good shell, if you want to call it the structure, the shell of the house, I think that is key. I think start with even if it's basic on the inside and you leave room for improvement and expansion or addition of features, that's fine. But just get the shell the way you want it.
What about, I know you talked about kitchen, and I agree, kitchen is a great place to put your money into. How important are the appliances in a kitchen? Like, do you think that people can save on appliances, or they should, or do you encourage them, no, splurge on the luxury brand?
Well, when I talk about a splurge, it's usually like the size of the appliance. So if you're like jumping up from a 36-inch fridge or a 36-inch cooktop, which are to me is like a standard size, if you're going up on size, obviously you want to do that on the front end because your kitchen would be built around those sized appliances. So that's what I like to point out to somebody.
Yeah, be comfortable, within a 36-inch range. It's a very good size range.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the old standard, it was 30 inches. 36 is kind of the new standard on custom building.
Yeah.
But it's still, you can get a 6-burner.
Absolutely.
Or a griddle in the middle. And griddle in the middle. That sounded kind of funny. But having that cabinetry set up for that is going to be the key. So 36 inches and knowing, okay, maybe I'm going to do a low end or a lower end Bosch appliance right now or something similar. And then one day, make that bonus check. I'm going to get that $10,000 Wolf I want.
That's right.
Slide it in there.
Yeah. But also appliances. I mean, I think a refrigerator is the most swapped out appliance that I see in homes. But really, people aren't over here buying a new range every 3 years. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so,
Because fridges, and they're better now, but a lot of
yeah.
fridges, they break.
yeah, the
As-
mechanisms are just
Ice makers. Oh,
What is with an ice maker?
I know.
Indoor ice makers, don't get them.
that we didn't.
Sorry.
We didn't put one in our. New,
Everyone I work with gets them. I'm just kidding. No, but they don't like they and the people, our vendors who we work with that do them. They're very honest. They're like, it'll probably last you a few years.
Right.
Like, just know that going into it.
Yeah. And if you splurge on the Sub-Zero, they say that those are very reliable units and they have a good warranty. Service is expensive on them, but they have a long service life. So
Right.
they can swap out all the parts and change them. And it's not like you just rip it out and put a new one in.
Yeah.
Anything on like that people wouldn't think about, like things that we don't see that you would suggest, like you should splurge on this, whether it's the type of HVAC or the installation. Like, what can you think of that's like, again, things that people don't want to spend money on, but it's like this is a good thing to spend your money on.
Yeah, like HVAC and insulation. We live in a very easy to heat climate. And heating is the most expensive part. So it's a mixed bag of, or you'll get a mixed bag of answers when people ask, is it worth getting the higher efficiency unit? It depends on what's important to you. Are you trying to keep your energy bill down? Like what's that savings going to look like? And is that very important to you? How long do you plan to stay in the house? If you don't plan to stay in your house for over 10 years, you probably shouldn't upgrade any of that.
Right.
So those are all things that you should consider. We use very high quality materials for the framing, the drywall, the stuff that the nuts and bolts of the house. So it's not like there's really any way to save there.
Yeah.
I'd say it's just the stuff that people don't know. Like, again, going back to the wall heights, a basement is very common to have like an 8-foot basement. And it's just not much more to go to a 9-foot basement and maybe even consider a 10. But a 9 is very nice. And that's something that doesn't cost a lot of money, but people need to be educated about it.
Just again goes back to that preference. Like someone might find the value in that versus not. And I have things that I could tell a client is a way to save. Like we could swap this for this and that'll bring your cost down significantly in their specs. But someone might be like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
So just client base.
I think we also, again, all three of us probably like when we're talking to our clients, especially this like luxury buyer and homeowner. I mean, it's called luxury for a reason. So,
Well, yeah, it's custom homes.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we're customizing it
Yeah.
for that client.
Yeah. I mean, I'd look at it like if you kind of looked at Toyota and Lexus, the internals are the same, and we're building a very good, well-built home. There's really not a lot of stuff that they would increase and get a lot of value on, from where they're starting at with us. We're not wrapping our house with some generic house wrap that says the lumber company on it. We're using zipboard. We're using radiant barrier roof sheathing or foam in the attic, so we're really thinking about everything from the structure to the insulation. We're using poured walls for the basement, not precast, because we have a good reputation with the poured walls and the drainage and the waterproofing. So we have a kind of like a minimum starting level, at least for our business,
Yeah.
where we're not going to compromise on what kind of subfloor you have. Because if you use a crappy subfloor, it's going to squeak, it's going to swell, it's going to be just a disaster. So we don't want to do that. I think we really do have the best interest kind of dialed in for the client on that matter. And then it's kind of like the Toyota versus Lexus. We own a couple Toyotas. I love them. They're great. But the Lexuses offer a little bit more of the luxury items, and it's the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And some of the icing is easy to add and change, and some of it's not. And I think that's knowing what the two are.
Well, that kind of takes us into to my next question, talking about allowances. So, again, specifically looking at the custom building process. And I think, again, this is something that people don't necessarily understand right off the bat. How do you build your allowances for clients, and how are those broken down?
So I'd say that's a constant involvement, and we are always working on it and really just trying to perfect it, because I've been from the world of a cost plus builder where it was fair to the client in the fact that we're only charging you for whatever you buy, and the allowances can be whatever, and the cost is what it is, and you pay us for this. But the experience along the way there is very it's met with a lot of friction and resistance, and even if they say, oh yeah, we get the allowances are just a number and it depends on what I pick out, they never really quite get that. So trying to perfect the allowances and get them as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
You can't just keep adding money to allowances, because that's not the way to do it. But figuring out how to take them, okay, this is the type of appliance package this covers. Are you comfortable with that? Some people are like, that's fine, we'll pay out of pocket because we don't have a construction loan. I tell people, whatever you set the allowances on is how we base our margin too. So if you need them included, let's put them in there. If you want them out of pocket, hey, no skin off our back. If you want to upgrade your appliances and pay $12,000 more than the allowance, we just need to have that education along the way. And Alicia's really helping. We're trying to bring in selections on the front end, so those bigger ticket items and items we need to know for lead times too are very well informed and almost kind of, I would say, dialed in as much to a T as possible. We're trying to say appliances, exterior, big ticket items that might go unnoticed or uneducated. The homeowner wouldn't know that it's maybe not the right allowance. We're trying to get those out of the way.
I was about to ask, I guess, how much are you involved in that in terms of when clients have questions about the allowances? It sounds like you're.
Well, I'm not the person in charge of setting the allowance, but I'm educated enough to know what they're telling me that they're wanting in a home based upon pictures or description, if maybe that allowance needs to be beefed up or if they're going to stay within. Because I mean, we've had clients, and I think a lot of people do think I have an allowance. well, why isn't the tile I picked in the allowance? I'm like, well, you picked all marble. Like, and while we're there, I'm obviously telling them like, we're not giving you an allowance for like the high end of top of the line tile to put throughout your house. If you want to do that, great. But you didn't really have that conversation.
Yeah.
So-
Do people like tell you that? Like, is that a question you
So
ask
that
people?
she kind of cued in on a tricky one, and I would say most tile doesn't range that much. Like if you look at the budget, you could double your tile budget, sure, but that might go from a $4,000 to an $8,000 material budget on an average job. So not a giant deal. I mean, you can do whatever you want. There's people out there who spend $100,000 on tile.
Yeah, sure
But
is.
for us in this market, we try to educate, kind of dial it into a T. So we have a number for floor tile, for shower floor tile, and for wall tile. Backsplash as well, I believe.
Yeah.
And we qualify that by saying X amount per square foot on backsplash, X amount per floor tile. Shower tile is going to be a little more because it's usually like a mosaic. It's a mat they lay in. So it makes it, I think, pretty easy when they go shopping to say, okay, this is how to start with the range.
Oh, for sure. Like we have it broken down, like you said, price per square foot. We do that for tile, we do it for flooring, we do it for countertops. So that vendor is aware of where we're trying to land. And again, we're not speccing for cheap products. Like we start at quartz level, you know, we're at a range where I would expect people to be selecting from.
What area, if someone, or in your experience, RB specifically, has like, what hurts the most if people go over budget? Like what has been like, oh my gosh, that's way over budget. Like, have you ever, does that question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, like, I mean, I'd say just, and I think before to kind of talk about that tile, I used to take an average square foot for all tile, just measure up the square footage and multiply it and add some. We always add extra to it, a little fluff, and then say, okay, all tile average this square footage. That didn't work as well. So now we like dialed it in and tried to call it out, because if you go in and you just got a number and an average, and the pricing on wall tile is different than the shower floor tile, the homeowner doesn't know that, and they go just pick out what they want, and it doesn't quite mesh with the allowance.
Yeah.
So I feel like tile's probably the biggest disconnect, because but I think the more we quantify it, the more they understand and have ownership of it.
Yeah. And then they work with someone like me when I'm like, do you want a tile accent wall in your bathroom? Do
Right.
you want
And I'm
to
like,
take
yes,
your
that
tile
sounds amazing.
to the ceiling in your kitchen? And these are questions that we ask clients
Up front.
are starting to
Okay.
go through like a preliminary design process
Yeah.
of like, just like the little things that I usually like to add in, or just, you know, give them the option.
Yeah, and it's things people don't think about at 1st, but then when they're like, "Oh, like I didn't think about that." Yes, I do think that's something I would want, and I feel like
Exactly.
that helps. Yeah,
Yeah.
And we're bringing samples. We've brought them into the office where we can show examples of square foot ranges. So here's an in-stock quartz in 3 different colors. Our office has actually 3 samples of countertops in all different price points. So we can show them those samples. We can show them our actual mock-ups and say these are what's included or what the price range is for it. And at least they're starting there. Because if you say quartz, there is a difference between an LG brand quartz or whatever the name is that we use common, and then Cambria. Like Cambria is, for some reason, astronomically expensive.
Oh yeah.
Because they've built I think it's because they built a brand. They've got a really good color range, and it's a high end, like they've created a scarcity. You know, it's a precious product, and it's very expensive. It's it's usually about twice the cost.
Oh yeah.
wow.
Yeah. It gets up to like $90 a square foot.
I've seen it more than that.
yeah.
I've seen like, yeah. So it gets very pricey. Different looks though. So we just try to show them examples and educate the best we can. We're just getting better every day, hopefully.
I'm just like laughing at myself thinking about when the process that Alicia and I went through when we built my house. I remember the first thing that we went out to get was flooring, and we came in under budget. And Josh and Alicia and I are high fiving. They're like, "Yes, under budget." That was the only thing that we went in under budget. Everything else we ended up like going, maybe not like an
Beautiful
astronomical.
floors too. So this is nice.
Yeah.
I'll
But
just
it was just
have
it's
to
just
ask
so
you what your
funny.
allowance was because this is pretty nice.
Couldn't tell you. Don't remember. It's all a blur at this point.
I remember.
So I would the other one that I think we're doing better on is it's stuff that we had cost increases on. Like one stupid one was garage doors. They became very scarce and they took a long time to get. And then we had I think like 4 price increases in 1 year, which is weird. They've been so steady. So having to tell people that like, well, yes, we did price your garage door at a good price. It just went up in cost. That's a real stinker. But you know.
Yeah.
And then cabinets, same thing. Cabinets went up in cost, jumped up in cost, and that took some time to catch up with. Also, like just trying to detail out the best we can your cabinet allowance. So if it's on the plans, we hopefully have an allowance for it.
Like giving a client a look for less. Like if a client is really strict on budget and wanting to stay within their guidelines, you know, they might like a color of a floor, but then we can look at an LVP versus an engineered hardwood. Light fixtures is a big place to save because we have manufacturers out there that I can find you a very similar looking light fixture for less money.
And you definitely did. Like, I know a few fixtures in particular, we would look at them at, you know, some places here, and then you'd be like, oh, I can definitely find that. And I do appreciate that.
Yeah. So it's like flooring, light fixtures, tile's a great one. Like people love the look of marble, but really we can get you a porcelain that has that same color variation, just a different material. But that's what I'm saying. Like some people see the value in a material and just want what they want, and that's
Right.
totally fine. But those are ways that like me as a designer can get creative to like keep you in your budget. Appliances and plumbing fixtures, they cost what they cost. Like there's no really like creative way with an appliance. Like
Right.
those are what they are. With plumbing fixtures, like the finish color can really save you money. And I think that's a big thing that clients are surprised on because matte black and the brushed gold, like the more trending colors, cost more money for the same exact fixture if you got it in a brushed nickel. Like,
Yeah, I know. It drives me crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, educating the clients, seeing what is their value, what's important to them, and then trying to like work with all these specs and allowance and kind of where we put it all.
So thinking about, we talked about what we would say is the thing we would recommend people splurge on. What is one thing you would recommend somebody save on, RB, and why?
Well, I think I keyed in on this earlier. Stuff that's hard to swap out later, stuff that's hard to change. So future proofing the best you can. I would say, fixtures and like light fixtures.
I was going to say, what fixtures?
So you can, you can go as extreme as if it's that tight, put a cap over it right now, a little decorative plate. Now, I would back up and say the place you should do it is put in the high impact. You could have like 3 nice light fixtures in a house and then build from there. That's very low, but I'm just saying you could really limit where you're putting that. So you do have nice high impact fixtures versus smaller fixtures that you have more of them. And so that's one. And then plumbing as well is easier to swap out to some regard. You have to have the same line set up for like I would try to nail your in-wall fixtures. So anything in-wall, I try to nail it or get at least to the right brand because the rough ends need to match the trims.
Yeah.
So that's behind the wall. Faucets, Alicia doesn't like this one, I think, but I like single hole faucets. They're easy to clean around. They like just pop them in. But that's me. That's everyone's preference. So they're significantly less expensive for good looking fixtures. So if you can put those in some places, leaving room, like let's say you're in an office and if you have a wall for built-ins, you don't feel like you have the money for built-ins right now. well, don't do the built-ins. Like make sure you have
Absolutely.
the outlets set up where you want them, the stuff in the wall, and then add the built-ins later. That's easy to add. So cabinetry, getting the cabinets in like the kitchen right,
Yeah.
the bathrooms, but then the additional stuff you want to add, like leaving the space for it and planning for it in the future, but not doing it. That's a smart way to go. One that's maybe not so popular, and I took some flack for this one time, is let's say you want to cut some costs in some secondary bedrooms. It's your retirement home. You're not going to have people living there. You're going to have guests once in a while. Put some carpet in those bedrooms. It's cheap
Yes.
for a high-end carpet, and you don't have to live with it forever. Carpet
Right.
is the easiest thing to replace.
Yeah.
Everyone gives me, if you have site-finished hardwoods and
Yeah.
you're trying to match them, I would say, okay, yeah, I get it. But
My only comment, because that is a great place to have people save, is switch out rooms to carpet. But then you run into the fact of like the rest of your floors may be discontinued, or you can't get the same brand, and then you're going to color match, or it might be a different
It's not gonna be
material.
exact.
Sure.
So it's like that's
yeah, and I completely get that. I'm just, it's like, and I guess the root of all of this is like, figure out how to build a house that's the size you need
yes.
and what you're comfortable with. And I enjoy people who try to maximize houses and try to have it be very efficient. If they're trying to cut costs, look at the efficiency of the square footage. Let's start with a high quality, smaller home versus a diluted large home. Let's make sure the bedroom count's met, how many bathrooms you need, all of that's there. But then let's be mindful about the spaces we actually need and make those spaces really awesome.
I agree with that for sure.
Where's the place where you would tell people to save if they were asking?
I was thinking plumbing fixtures like faucets and stuff, because it's another place I can get you that look for less. Brizo's one of the luxury, more expensive lines, and people love it because they have the champagne bronze coloring. But I could also get you that same color in maybe a knockoff brand, but it's the same exact shape faucet, and you're going to save hundreds of dollars times that by however many bathrooms and kitchens and stuff like that ends up saving you thousands of dollars. So that's one thing I'm always like, unless it has a really sweet feature, you don't really need to do a high-end finish in every single bathroom, because then it comes with the shower heads and the tub fillers and stuff like that. And then just plumbing fixture appointment in general. If people want a freestanding tub, they range from, $1,200 to $10,000.
yeah.
Like, let's be real. So
I
I mean,
haven't seen a 10,000 yet, but I know they're out there.
they're out there, and
Yeah.
we looked at some the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I saw some at
Yeah.
God,
Ferguson.
let's
that
put
were,
that
like,
in
crazy.
right before they move in. 'Cause
Yeah. So, and that's and then like the tub filler for those tubs can range
Oh,
from
yeah.
a couple hundred to a couple thousand. So it's again,
Yeah.
just educating the client, and that might look cool, but we also could get this look for this.
Yeah.
So
Tub's that's a really good one, because you get into deck mount that you like on the tub,
correct.
deck mounted filler,
Bless you.
Thank you.
deck mounted filler that you mount like on behind the tub, wall filler, which those are all very reasonable. You get into the candy cane fillers, that's what I call them. They get really expensive. So it's just knowing how to maximize that. Like what makes sense for the space, and if you love the candy cane filler, we'll get it. But just know that that's where you value know what you value in your home.
I think the plumbing selection appointment is like where I have to be my most mindful and creative. And we have great vendors who are very educated and help me and help the client know what brands and quality and warranties and stuff to make educated decisions. So we feel confident that we're getting what we want. But that's a really, really detailed selection that I think people overlook.
Yeah. I feel like people can always save in flooring. I definitely see the side and the carpet and the bedrooms that you're not using, all of that. I have people who ask me all the time, like, oh, should I do engineered hardwood or LVP? And of course, again, it comes to budget, but I see a lot of good. Now, this is engineered hardwood, but I do see a lot of LVP now that I think looks great and doesn't cost as much. And I'm like, yeah, if you want to try to save, like, I think it's a great place to save.
You really can get the same look.
No, I don't know how long it's going to
obviously-
last,
right.
you know, compared to the more expensive. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they have good track records. You put them, you can do your whole house if it's a higher end LVP. You can do them in the basement level, or we call them lake levels if they're on the lake.
Right.
It's a waterproof floor. It's in between carpet and hardwoods, so you don't want carpets in your rec room in your basement.
Right.
It's not that basements leak at all. That's that's a poor execution of a basement. The problem is like the traffic in and out going to the backyard, to the lake level. So if you're down in that basement, you can run it in the bathrooms and have that waterproofing floor everywhere. It's easy to clean. You can swap out a piece here and there if it gets damaged. There's ways to do that. So that's pretty easy. And if you hate it one day, you rip it up. It's not glued down. It's mostly floating. So it's easy to deal
I've
with.
noticed a lot of our clients have been interested in looking into LVP more, even if they are spec'd for higher quality floors, because a lot of them are on the lake and they love the feature of the waterproof, water resistant, like the easiness of an LVP for their lifestyle. So I've had a handful of our clients like really consider doing it throughout just because they're going to be on the lake in and out.
One cool thing we've done in those basements is stained floors.
I saw that you did that.
And we'll be doing that again here. At least have it coming up in one house. And it's all about having the right people to do it. And we've got a guy who does it at a decent price, and he comes in and he actually like grinds the whole floor, which is a step and above. Usually you have to like protect the floor, and then it doesn't quite go well. And he does a great job. Charges a fair rate, and the results are really nice. They're like mirrored, very cool looking, and it's about the price of LVP. So maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
But it's a cool look, and it's neat.
Very cool. And what is this that he's doing? You said staining?
It's a stained and polished concrete.
Oh, we talked about doing that in our basement. And but now this is getting off topic. Is there a concern about the concrete cracking and is that a concern?
Like settling.
Yes.
Well, so
I think it's part of the look of it though.
yeah,
It's
I mean, you really so basement slab, you're going to get some to some extent, you're always going to have some concrete hairline cracks here and there or imperfections.
Right.
But a basement slab, if set up really correctly, it should be kind of done moving by the time you go to stain the floor. So we're staining it at the end, and he actually comes in and fills it with a urethane and kind of like minimizes it. You still see it. You might have like a pothole in it, we call it. But just we'll fill it and we'll grind it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those features like a copper patinas naturally. It's just like, these characteristics of a material. I think that's just one of those selections you just got to know.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be
But
perfect.
I have seen the concrete. I think it's cool. Like I said, we considered it at our house. So
Yeah, it's definitely a cool look.
yeah.
Yeah, we're going back to the exterior, and I know you had asked about saving, but one place that's like, I don't think people really want to touch later, at least I don't, is decking. And trying to get that to be low maintenance, I think is worth it. We use a lot of Trex.
Yep.
You can use some other products. But if you have columns and stuff, and what if you have a screen porch on top of the deck and all this stuff? That's a lot of work to replace that.
Oh
Yeah.
So almost every house we build will be a composite deck of some type or tile.
We had this conversation the other day with a client who it's not going to be their primary residence. It's a second or third, fourth home for them. So they were like, of course, want great quality, but not looking to have like dream home features because we won't be there all the time. So I went through the house really quick. I was like, front door, painted fiberglass versus mahogany wood. Boom. There's thousands there. We talked about the LVP with the engineered hardwood. Bathrooms that probably won't get touched that much. Frog bathroom or basement bathroom, throw in an insert. They're not my favorite, but that saves you thousands of dollars there. And we just went through that, and I talked about like the in-stock court options, how that will keep you right on track. And they loved all those selections. And it's just really quick ways for someone to see where they can save thousands of dollars really fast. And that's appealing to some people.
And you mentioned the bathrooms. We use a lot of tubs with tile walls.
Yeah.
That's like our standard secondary bathroom. Now, the low option from that would be a full fiberglass insert, which we do. Bonus rooms that aren't going to be used a lot, utility baths, whatever. They save a significant amount of money. But in between that and a full tile shower, you get the look of a beautiful subway tile, which isn't that expensive.
Right.
So if you pick the subway tile, tub tile walls, great look, high impact.
Yeah.
And it's what most families want for their kids' bathrooms.
Right. Right.
So it's appealing to the masses.
What are things we think maybe... No, it's always worth it in everyone's mind, but what are things that maybe aren't high on our list of splurge that we'd put in the category of like kind of ridiculous?
Cabinet hardware.
Yeah.
They could be so expensive, and yeah, you're going to have maybe more of a heavy duty, but you're not holding it in your hand like this. It's connected to something. You're using the same function. It's functioning the same.
Yeah.
But the price point of those are...
I felt that way about door hardware, and that was a big point of contention with me and Josh. And I get it. Like, the stuff we have is very cool. I think we probably could have saved on it and gotten a similar look. But I mean, he was like, "This is what we have to have," and it's just not something that is important to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it could be something cheaper. I'm fine.
And hardware is definitely one of those items that can be swapped out easily.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Well, and that was something that we talked about, and again, this is very preference,
Yeah.
personally, but for us, Josh was like, yeah, but we're never going to. He's like, I mean, you can say that. He's like, but we're not going to switch out all this hardware. And I was like,
Right.
Fair.
We had someone ask us the other day about, well, that seems expensive for a door. And it really actually wasn't. It's just wood doors are expensive. But I would say a front door is a splurge item even though that's an exterior, you can change it. But like that is the lips on the house, you know?
Big focal point.
Absolutely.
What about,
The lips on the house. I don't know.
one thing that this may not be as easy to switch out later, unless I guess if you go ahead and run the plumbing lines, but a lot of people love a gas lantern look, and then they find out how much gas lanterns are, and they're
Right.
Oh, yeah.
a bit more
That's
significant.
definitely a splurge.
And so, so they'll say, oh, well, I'll just put up regular lights and then but I'm like, well, you got to make sure you have that gas line run though. That's like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's something people don't think about.
It
Yeah.
certainly is. Yeah.
But I do think it makes a huge impact on at that exterior look is
I
the
love
gas
it.
versus.
It's nice, and Alicia, you should definitely talk to people about that because that's something that goes under the radar on me. So you have to come in and tell me I want a gas lantern
Of course.
because
Yeah.
I don't think about that as much because we don't get that request as often. You know,
Really?
no,
Okay.
just
I mean, it's definitely
It's very, it is a southern thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there ain't no...
oh, it's beautiful. I just think it's not on people's radar. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people think about it honestly too late in the game.
fireplaces too. You know, your fireplace is
gosh,
you
yeah.
can't. The insert part is you need to. You may. I mean, they vary wildly.
Yeah.
You could spend $2,000 or you could spend $20,000 on the box, and probably, and I'm sure more than that.
Yeah,
but
we've
just
started talking about that so early on because it's crazy the price range and design aesthetic gives you. Like, what look are you going for? And then
what venting requirements does it have?
Yeah.
Is it going to fit in the fireplace? Then you're going to put all this finish around it. And even if you don't like the finish, you have to rip all that off to get to it. And that's something you need to know you like.
Yeah, absolutely. One way that I'm just thinking about, like, since we just built our house, obviously our house is all brick, but we painted it. And so our builder was like, because we, we're talking about the different kinds of brick, and our builder was like, well, really doesn't matter. Like, he's like, pick the cheapest brick.
Right.
When they were building our house, it took them, of course, forever. Painting our house was one of the last things that they did. If you saw, it was like mismatched brick, to be honest, because like at that time, brick kept going out of stock and stuff like that. So I think that's another great place.
The neighbors
people can-
were like, interesting exterior.
Yeah, we had that comment a
before
lot.
it was painted.
And finally, after they painted it, then people were like, "Oh, we were wondering if you
Yeah.
were leaving it like this." Like, my God, it has like 7 different variations of red brick. Like, no, we're painting it.
Hardy plank comes in a really terrible yellow color.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, I wish they would listen to all. I mean, I can't be the only builder complaining about it, but you don't know how many people ask, well, we thought it was going to be that color. I had a really nice client one time. We were going to paint it a very muted green, really pretty. And he was like, hey, I don't know. I just need to talk to you. I think they may have got the color wrong. And I was like, hey, it's just
It
primer.
hasn't happened. Yeah.
But that was so nice, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's just, I hate that yellow primer.
Yeah.
I wish Hardy Plank would listen. They do it because of people painting houses white, and it's they can identify it as true Hardy Plank because it's got the yellow primer. They call it gold. It ain't gold. It's mustard yellow.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Listen up, Hardy
if
Plank.
you're listening, James Hardy.
Yeah.
I try to tag them every time I do a story about
Yeah.
I hate this yellow primer.
Yeah.
I can just try to
Yeah.
poke at them.
So we're not looking for a sponsorship from James Hardy, it sounds
I mean,
like.
I'd love it. Just change your color.
Change your color.
Great product.
But we do love James Hardy.
Yes.
That's all we use for our siding,
Yeah.
and they're a great company.
We use them all the time, so we love you.
Trim work is kind of in the middle. I would say if you're looking for ways to save, you certainly don't have to do your panel trim, your shiplap, your cool wall designs. Those are things that can be added later. They're also not that expensive to do. So if you have a construction loan, for instance, and you want that included, let's allowance it. You know, voice what you want. If what you want is not spelled out verbatim and have a number by it in a contract, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
So being okay with change orders, if you're cash or if you have some cash liquid that you can pay for, or putting it in for that bank loan, I think is very important. And people just need to communicate. Don't be afraid to tell us what they want, and understand that we just want to include what you want. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. I think my job is important on the front end because I do maybe bring ideas to clients or things that they thought maybe not would have thought of till it comes to that point of their process. So we try to catch those little details as early as possible to include them in their allowances. We hit the list.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's very subjective for each individual house and person on what they want to splurge on and save on. I think at the end of the day, again, specifically looking at the luxury home market, you know, if it's a home you're going to be in for a really long time, splurge on things you want to splurge on. I mean, you know, obviously each person has their own budget, has their own everything, but do what you want to spend on it. Don't necessarily think about resale though, because sometimes the things that you put into it, you're definitely not going to get out of it. But if it's a home you're going to stay in for a really long time, then enjoy it.
If you're enjoying Design, Build, Sell, please check us out on Apple iTunes and please drop us a rating and review. It means the world to us and helps us grow this little thing we're doing. If you want to follow along on Instagram, check us out at Design, Build, Sell Podcast. We're also available on the website at designbuildsellpod.com. You can see all our links there, find our downloads for our show, and see what's coming up next. We appreciate it and can't wait to bring you some more exciting podcasts.